Hey, I think we should get started. What do you all think? We should get started?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do that, and we'll, as people drift on in, we'll, continue the welcome. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Western Neuropathy Association's ongoing webinar series. And today's webinar is a little bit different than some of the ones that we've had in recent months because it's one we like to do every so often, generally roughly once a year. And it's a discussion of the Western Neuropathy Association itself, the programs it has, its mission, the people involved with it, and generally what it hopes to accomplish in getting the whole subject of neuropathy out there and better known. You're going to meet a number of people today who are on the board of directors of WNA. I am one of them. I'm Glenn Robotsky, and I'm going to introduce you to some in a few moments anyway. And you're going to hear us talk about a lot of different things today. Some of you who may be on here may know about them. Some of you may be newbies and have only been possibly to our website or to other aspects of what we do intermittently, like the support groups. But today you'll find out about the whole range of everything, and we'll hope, obviously, for those of you who have been joining in only to some of them, that you'll join into all of them. So I will now introduce first, to talk about some of the more general aspects of things here, our current board president, okay, who is Pam, who you are going to see in the upper corner of your screens, I hope, in a moment. And she's going to talk about our history, our mission, a little bit more about the board of directors. She's waving right now. Okay, Pam, go right ahead.
Thank you, Glenn. And Lindsay, if I can have the slides started, please. Hey, how about the next one? Well, I think most of you know a little bit about the Western Neuropathy Association, but of course we weren't always the Western Neuropathy Association. When I came on the board about 10 or 11 years ago, we were the Northern California chapter of the Neuropathy Association because there was the Neuropathy Association based in New York at that time, and we were just a chapter of it. Pretty soon we decided that, hey, we're doing more than Northern California. We're doing Southern California too, so we better change our name. And so we changed our name to the Pacific chapter of the Neuropathy Association. And then the Neuropathy Association in New York disbanded. And so we go, oh my goodness, now we're going to have to change our name again. So we decided, I think we better be a little bit more all-inclusive this time, so you don't have to keep changing our name. So we came up with the Western Neuropathy Association, thinking that, yes, we're serving California, Oregon, Nevada, some in Arizona, so that should cover it. No, that's not covering it. Now we have an association with people in Texas and all the way to New York, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Minnesota, Wisconsin, all over the country. But I think we decided that it's just going to be the Western Hemisphere. That's what we're going to call our Western part. So I don't think we're going to try to change our name again, at least not until we go to the International Society for Neuropathy or something like that. But I think we'll stay with the Western Neuropathy Association for now. And of course, all of this development was based on support groups. Bev Anderson was so diligent in traveling all over California, even up into Oregon, to personally come to each of those support groups and help them get started and give them encouragement. And those support groups were thriving and doing their job. And then, of course, the pandemic hit, and now we're mostly online. Auburn, where I am actually from, does still have an in-person support group. And they're very, well, successful because they draw new people in all the time, and they have very interesting speakers. And we encourage people to still do support groups, in-person support groups. How about the next slide, Lindsay? We know it's kind of hard to get together. It is really interesting, though, when you can focus on your own region, your own city. Get information from people who have recommendations of different neurologists or really great physicians in your area. So there is still advantage to having local support groups. And I'm not saying that has to be in person, but one of the things that we would like to encourage people to do is to start an online, more local support group. And we'll certainly give you all of the backup and support that you need to do that. And as you can see, that goes right with our mission: to provide hope and support information and empowerment to people with neuropathy and those who care about them. And I like that last part especially, and those who care about them, because I think it's really interesting when we present some of these webinars and hear people discuss. Even Catherine has mentioned on her online support group meetings how if a spouse or a caregiver attends, they go, "Whoa, I had no idea these other people are saying the exact same thing that you're saying. And so I guess your complaints are real." And I think that's why it's most important for us to reach out for those caregivers. Of course, we also want to inform the healthcare community, and that's been a challenge for us. We've done different things like giving books to interns at UC Davis and University of San Francisco Med Center. They kind of don't want us to interfere, you know, they figure they have their own books and their own agendas, but our idea is that not enough physicians are understanding peripheral neuropathy, and we want them to know more, especially from the patient aspect. So we continue to do that. We continue to try to make inroads into the medical community, and this is where you can help. This is where we ask you, if you have a good relationship with a physician or a school or anyone, even a nursing school and nurses and other kind of caretakers, this would be great for us to be able to get our information into the hands of those people. And of course, we also are supporting research. Our main research project now is with Dr. Hammock from UC Davis. He was an entomologist, and he developed a, well, I guess you can call it a drug that will take the pain away without any opiate type of situation. And we're just waiting for him to go through all of the clinical trials that are necessary for the FDA to approve his research. But we follow that icosis research pretty closely. Next slide. I think our vision is probably one of your visions too. To live a pain-free life. Wouldn't that be wonderful? And to make people, well, realize that this is part of our normal everyday living, and that there are certain, I don't know, accommodations that can be given to people with neuropathy sometimes. But you know what? You have to speak up and say that. You have to say, you know what? I have neuropathy and it's really hard for me to go up those stairs. Do you think there's a different way? Don't be afraid to just say that, because people need to know, and you shouldn't be embarrassed After all, I think neuropathy is actually one of the fastest growing conditions that there is, between regular diabetic neuropathy and now chemo-induced neuropathy, and just maybe old age neuropathy too. More and more people are suffering from this. So don't be afraid to talk about this with your friends and neighbors and coworkers. Next slide. As you can see, this is our board of directors. We do meet monthly on Zoom, and thank you for Zoom because this has enabled us to have such a variety of directors from around the country, and that is really working very, very well. And I appreciate all the people who are on our board. And that doesn't mean that we aren't looking for more board members. We're always looking for more board members. You may have a certain kind of expertise that you think is missing. Would love to hear from you. Just reach out to any one of us. Talk about it on any one of the calls that happen, or reach out to us with an email, or even just to the office. You can see we have Lindsay as our administrator, and she will forward anything to one of us as appropriate. And we'd love to hear from you at any time. Next slide. I also noticed on this slide that we have no executive director. We have no paid staff beyond what we pay to ARC, which is the Association Resource Center. And the Association Resource Center is one that does this administrative work for a number of nonprofits. So Lindsay isn't only hired by us. She's hired by quite a few other organizations to do just these type of things. And we're very happy to have this relationship because it frees us up to do other things, and it centralizes all of these requests into one place. It makes it very easy for us.
Okay. I'm going to jump back on in here and talk a little bit more. Thank you, Pam, for all that. About some of the things that we actually do. And again, for some of you, this may be familiar, for some of it, maybe not so much, but we basically try and do a lot of different things here at WNA. First and foremost among them is our website with lots and lots of information on it. It's at pnhelp.org. You can definitely stick the HTTPS : in there if you want to make sure that it is the fully verified website, although I don't think anybody's trying to copy our website. And we have on there innumerable bits of information about all of the things we do. There is a lot of information about there about neuropathy itself, causes, possible treatments for some of those causes, because some of those causes can be treatable. Also different types of tests to determine whether, one, you have neuropathy, and two, if you do, what you might actually have, what type. Also on there is information about all of the different projects that we have been involved in over the years. The various support groups that we have, which is another major aspect, and Pam was talking about that a few minutes ago. Currently, we have a few of those live, quote unquote, support groups that are the typical support group model that most people are used to. But of course, as was mentioned, with the onset of the pandemic, we have gone virtual. And we have 3 major virtual support groups now running over the course of a month. They normally run on the second Saturday of the month, whatever date that happens to be. That one is headed up by Catherine, who I'm sure we'll talk about it in a little while. There is also one on the 3rd Wednesday of the month, which I am ostensibly the leader of. And there's one on the 4th Saturday of the month that John Phillips, who unfortunately is not here with us today, but another member of the board of directors, is the one who heads it up. You actually, for those of you who may not know this, the that particular support group is going to be going on 2 days from now. We certainly encourage you to come if you don't normally come to it. And if anybody needs to know how to gain access to that, if you actually stick something into the Q&A part, if you're not already on the mailing list that Catherine so assiduously keeps of all the people who would like to be involved in our support groups, put your email address in there. You can actually send the message directly to Catherine. You don't have to send it to everybody here in the Q&A, and then we can make sure that you get that information. The support groups, as Pam mentioned, have been the heart of WNA for a long time. Many people do not know much about neuropathy, especially in the beginning of their diagnostic and other aspect journey. We try very much to provide information there, not only for people who are new, but for people who've been going through this for a long time. We certainly bring the combined expertise we have with all the experience we have in there to help out as many people as we can, to indicate what types of coping mechanisms, what type of treatments, what types of pharmaceuticals may have worked for some of us, and hopefully to provide suggestions for avenues that people can explore on their own. A big part of the support group aspect, of course, is to get people to advocate for themselves when they're with medical professionals and in other situations too. And part of that, in addition to the support groups, is manifested in Neuropathy Hope, which is our monthly newsletter. Catherine edits that. She's going to talk about that, I'm sure, as well. And what we try and do there is present, yes, you got to make sure you're saying the right word, to present coping tips, recent research developments. We'd certainly scour the internet for those. Little pieces sometimes written by not only the board of directors, but other people who are part of WNA, whether they're part of the support groups or whether they're members, about situations that they have gone through, what has happened, and what insights they have gained from it, hoping to provide insight for others. We certainly have our schedules in there. It's definitely the place to go to if you want to make sure that you have the information about when the next webinar, which we'll talk about in a moment, is going to occur, and when the next support groups are going to occur. And what we also try and do with that is make sure that people know that when we're trying to advance knowledge and lobby and get people who maybe don't have neuropathy or aren't living with people who have neuropathy or caregiving for them, that's where we try and make sure that we have that information collected. Most recently, as some of you may have heard, there is a letter writer campaign going on right now with the Department of Defense, which has a program where they basically will take approximately, I think each year it's approximately 50 conditions in which they will provide funding for further research. Neuropathy is one of those conditions, but it's not automatic that neuropathy is mentioned there. So we have been spearheading, in conjunction with some other neuropathy organizations, a letter writing campaign so that people can write to their senators, to their representatives if they wish to indicate that neuropathy is one of those conditions that is incredibly common, often very debilitating, and to which money should go for more and more research initiatives. Speaking of webinars, you're in one. We run these webinars approximately every month. Sometimes it's 5 or 6 weeks, depending upon when people can be scheduled. As I said, this one today is a little bit unusual in that it's basically about WNA and involves the people who are on the board here at WNA. But often we try and bring in various different speakers to talk about issues of importance to people who suffer from neuropathy. Recent ones have included hand controls for car driving. Many people whose neuropathy affects their feet, obviously, are worried about still being able to drive. And there are alternatives. There are hand controls, and we had a very interesting webinar involving not only a guest speaker, but one of our support group stalwarts who just went through making that conversion for her car, talking about that. We've had webinars about supplements, which Marty did a few months ago, talking about B vitamins, lipoic acid, their uses, various other aspects of dealing with that. In the very near future, We're going to have some webinars on a batch of other subjects. We're going to have webinars, for instance, on neuropathy scams, which should be very interesting. Some of you, I'm sure, when you've mentioned, to any part of the internet that you have neuropathy, have been inundated by emails, banner ads, possibly phone calls, purporting to have a neuropathy treatment or even a neuropathy cure. Some of these places may have some legitimacy, a lot don't, but we're going to talk about how to tell them apart. We're going to be doing a webinar on unusual causes of neuropathy beyond the usual things that people know about, such as diabetes or autoimmunity or chemotherapy for various cancers. Those are common ones, but there are 200 plus possible causes of neuropathy. And a lot of them are things that not only do the sufferers not know about, but your average physician may not know about. And it might be helpful if you're at least aware of them, because it might provide an avenue for testing in a future medical visit. In keeping with that, we're going to have one of our sister organizations, stalwarts, Linda Pettio, come in at one point and do a seminar on hereditary causes of neuropathy. One of the interesting aspects of the Human Genome Project has been that over the past 20 years, there have been more and more discoveries of hereditary conditions that have neuropathy either as one component or as a main component. The database on that is growing and is now quite extensive. And if you're in a situation where you have neuropathy symptoms and you remember that your parents, your grandparents, other relatives have also complained about weird sensations or weird motor symptoms or autonomic symptoms, that might be an avenue that's been worth going into as well. And of course, which Pam has also mentioned previously, one of the things we do is research support. We are currently supporting one major researcher, as Pam mentioned. We'd certainly like to do more. Certainly, if we can raise some more funds to that, we would have the ability to do that. And it's certainly something we're looking forward to in the future. Okay, next slide. And we'll talk a little bit about that website that I mentioned. Yes, I've said some of this, but now you can actually see some of the things that are involved with it. As I said before, causes, symptoms, treatment, coping mechanisms, links to important neuropathy sites that you should know about, some of the resources that we've talked about. We have a peripheral neuropathy patient toolkit, recently revised, which is basically, hey, you think you have neuropathy, you have symptoms, what are your next steps? What should you be doing? What kind of doctors should you think you should be seeing? What can you ask them? Hopefully, what kind of testing can you get? We mentioned Neuropathy Hope, the newsletter. We have back issues there from 2015 on. You can go onto the website and look at all the information that's been accumulated there over the years. If you are a member of WNA, you have the current one. If not, you basically have the ones up until about a few months ago. But which of course means become a member if you're not already. Although I suspect most of the people here today might be. We have a YouTube channel. People should go and look that up on YouTube. All you have to do is in the inquiry band, basically put Western Neuropathy Association. It comes up, so you don't have to worry about a direct URL. The YouTube channel is wonderful because everything that we do is a presentation, previous neuropathy webinars, various different other presentations that have been done at our annual meetings over the years. They all eventually wind up there. They get recorded and they're on the YouTube channel. You can also access, of course, many of these through the website themselves. But with the YouTube channel, they're all in one place and you could go through them and look over them all. And like I said, the webinars are there. Many of the presentations are there. You can see it going back many, many years, in fact. We also, of course, on the website have our support group listings, the dates, the times, the Zoom links that you will need to get into them. This is something that's also listed in the Neuropathy Hope newsletter, of course, each month. We try and it's on the website as well. Catherine sends out emails to everybody on that mailing list. Yeah, it's a bit redundant, but we want to make sure that nobody has to look very far to get all this information. So with that having all been said, at this point, I want to introduce Catherine up there in the corner, who's going to talk about things on the next slide, which we can actually send over to now, including how our support groups run and how the newsletter works.
Thank you, Glenn. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the support groups, and you've already heard about it from Pam and from Glenn, but I will also give some more information about that. And the support groups are the heart of the Western Neuropathy Association. It's where we bring together that community of people that suffer from peripheral neuropathy, where they can share their experiences with each other, talk about their symptoms, where they can discuss their treatments, and everybody just have this really good atmosphere of sharing. I really like this little saying in the upper corner there that says, sharing a fear makes it smaller, sharing a success makes it bigger, and sharing a problem makes it easier to bear. So we certainly do this within our support groups by encouraging each other in their neuropathy journey. When you come to one of our meetings, one of our virtual meetings, because that's what I'm most familiar with. When you come to one of our virtual meetings, we generally give the new people an opportunity to share their neuropathy journey and talk about what has happened to them and ask questions of everybody else, we say the old timers in the group that have already that have their own experience with it. Because one of the things that we do say is what works for you may not work for somebody else. So that's why we give you lots of different treatments that people have tried, and maybe you can find one that works for you. So for our support groups, we do offer both virtual meetings and in-person meetings. Our virtual meetings allow people to attend from anywhere to where they're not limited by their geographic location. And we do have people that attend from all over the US. And we do still have we have 3 in-person meetings where people meet together live. And this allows for sharing of local information such as doctor recommendations, physical therapy, occupational therapy, but also in most of those meetings too, you may have a presentation from an expert in a certain field, or you just can sit and share your experiences with each other. Next slide, please. So this is what we have currently. For our in-person groups, as Pam was saying earlier, we do have our Auburn group, and they meet monthly. I think they meet on the first Monday of the month. We are restarting the Santa Clara group in California. They've kind of made it official now to where they're going to meet on the odd months. So they're doing pretty good starting that back up. And then in Houston, we have our meetings quarterly. And so we have that on the first Saturday of each quarter. And then for the virtual groups, as Glenn mentioned, we have 3 of them. We call them by the day of the week that they're at. That just seems an easier moniker than trying to say hosted by or something. So second Saturday, which is the group that I host, and that it's the original group, the original virtual support group. And a lot of the people that come to that group are people that are originally from Houston, because that's where that one started out. And then we have the third Wednesday. This meeting is actually Dr. Donovan's meeting from Monterey, California. when COVID came, he went and took his meeting virtual, and then we absorbed it into the other meetings. So that is the one that Glenn Robotsky sponsors or hosts. And then because we really had a lot of people that were coming to the meetings and we felt like we couldn't give enough personalized attention to people, we started another group, and that's the fourth Saturday group. Even since then, we have grown beyond those initial numbers. We average about 35 people per meeting now. So it's about 100 people, and some people come to more than one meeting. So we have around 100 people per month that we're able to help. And then this last column is something I started just for last month. And it was trying to have some local virtual meetings so that people could talk about doctors and talk about doctors that have worked well for them, physical therapists that have worked well. So I had a meeting for people from California and people from Texas, because those are the two geographic areas where we have the most residents. And we had about, I don't know, we had about 10 people attend from each one, and we got some doctors' names from there. I just hope that it's something that we can continue, because it's something that people always want to know about. Who can I go see that will help me with my neuropathy? Next slide. So now I'm going to talk about Neuropathy Hope. Just a minute. Thank you. So Neuropathy Hope is our monthly newsletter. It looks kind of like this. It's got 8 pages. And I think it comes out, pretty much every month, but we have a January, February combined issue, like lots of magazines do now, so that staff kind of get December off. So that's kind of what I do too. But a lot of things that we have in here, we have latest information on treatments. A lot of companies post the results of their clinical trials. Whoops. Other way. Thank you. A lot post the results of the clinical trials. And that's what I try to put in, is to talk about things that are proven, things that have known results. For instance, in the April issue that will come out, the front page has, the article is on acupuncture for chemotherapy-induced peripheral neuropathy, because they just completed a clinical trial on that. Last month in March, the front page is peripheral neuropathic pain improved with spinal cord stimulation and laser therapy. And this was actually where the authors went and did a systematic review, meta-analysis, to where they looked at all the clinical trials papers over a certain time frame and summarized the results on that. And their summarization did talk about how spinal cord stimulation and laser therapy are very beneficial for people who suffer from pain from peripheral neuropathy. So that's kind of my treatments, research and information too. And a lot of these things have to do with things that are not medical. So things that your doctor's not going to talk to you about. Diet. We have several people that have changed their diet to a vegan diet or to an anti-inflammation diet, and it has helped with their neuropathic pain. Supplements, when Marty went and did his webinar on supplements, I also had him write up each of those. and we put it in the newsletter too.
Can you call me back? No problem. Call me back.
And then acupuncture, we have several people in our group who have good experience, good results from acupuncture. And that is something that I like to write about every once in a while, because it's something that people don't talk about enough. acupuncture is really helpful for peripheral neuropathy. And then exercise, and that's one of the other things I think that we should all do more of, but there's lots of clinical trials that talk about the benefits of exercise and for neuropathic pain. Plus, from the support groups, lots of people talk about how exercise has helped them with their pain, helped them with their balance. So that kind of leads right into the member experiences, talking about diet, the supplements. One of our latest member experiences was about the daily log. Was that in the March one? Maybe that was in before that. Anyways, it was when Chris talked about how the use of her daily log has really helped her determine when her symptoms are changing, why that may be happening. Is that due to her medications have changed or something else that is happening in her life? So I kind of already did the updates on the clinical trials. And then we always have on the inside page of the newsletter, page 2, yes, this always has the listing for the support groups. So obviously list the in-person groups and the virtual groups. And sometimes then we also have reports from the support groups on things that happen. For instance, the April one is going to have a report from the Auburn group about what they did in their meeting. So I think it's just really good to find out what other people are doing. So if you can't make it to the support groups yourself, then you can still get the benefits of that. Next slide.
And now, to just shift a little bit, you're going to meet another one of our board members, in fact, our newest board member, Martin, who's going to talk about the webinars that we do in a little bit more detail.
Well, thank you, Glenn. First, I'd like to say hello. I'm a brand new member to the board. And one of the things that I've experienced over the years is the use of webinars as a tool to reach out to all sorts of people who normally can't see or be present. And the webinar has been probably the most explosive tool in all of communication and perhaps in the last 10 years. So first, I'd like to begin with a little history of our webinars. And our president, past president, I should say, Bev Anderson, became very aware of new ways to reach out to the members to help with neuropathy. And with that, she started doing the webinar process. And so first, what is a webinar? People ask that question quite a bit. A webinar is done basically with a computer and the internet. Usually we have a general topic to talk about. Sometimes we talk about specific topics based upon what members would like us to speak of. The purpose of the webinar is to focus on educating and informing members about neuropathy in its various forms. We discuss new medical developments, ongoing research, treatments, and other areas of research related to neuropathic interest. Glenn has already kind of covered a lot of that information already, but I don't think it hurts to repeat. It should be noted that our webinars are to be considered a safe place to discuss the members' concerns so that no one feels alone in their neuropathy. And that has become pretty evident by when you sit in on a webinar, how people explain in personal detail the pain and problems they're going through. And they want to keep it a little bit private, but at least to the members who certainly understand. So it's a safe place to come and talk about your concerns. The growth of webinars with Western Neuropathy Association. Webinars have become probably our most important communication tool. Originally, we were in California and we could only do mailing, and the concept or onset of webinars changed us to a whole new level to where now We, of course, can reach across the United States at any time, which speeds up our communication process. We often meet through webinars, at least, as Kathleen said, at least 3 a month with the various support groups. Who is our host? Our board members or a guest speaker would be our host. Anyone with membership or a guest would like to attend, we certainly welcome. Is there a cost? No, webinars attendance is free. Each of our members is regularly asked to attend if they possibly can, because there's so much going on within neuropathy. Who really benefits from a webinar? Well, both our membership and the board, because we use the webinar to help determine the growth of the webinar via WNA participation and their attendance and interest levels. So if anyone would like more information about our webinars, please contact us by email or telephone, and we'll be happy to respond with more information. So that's what I have to tell you. Glenn?
Yes, thank you, Martin. And now to talk about a few other things, we're going to shift it back over to Pam once again. And Pam, I believe, is going to talk about some of the ways we finance the type of things that we do, in addition to some of the other topics. Take it away, Pam.
Thank you very much, Glenn. I think I've mentioned a couple of these things already, but a portion of our membership dues does go to support the research, and another portion of your membership dues goes obviously to our ongoing administrative expenses. And part of that is to hire staff like Lindsay to produce these webinars, get a Zoom account, and so forth and so on, and to process a newsletter and get it out to everyone who needs a hard copy or even the digital copy. Next slide, please. I think we've already gone over this.
There you go.
And so we do have our membership dues. We have gifts and donations from you very supportive members. I'm just thrilled by all of the $500 gifts that have been coming in lately. They just really help to give us a direction. You know, it kind of helps to tell us, yes, we like what you're doing and we hope that you can do more. So thank you very, very much. And then we have Thrifty Bargain. And that's a local Northern California hair thrift store. They opened a couple of stores here about 5 years ago in the greater Sacramento area. And both the owner of the thrift store and his son suffer from peripheral neuropathy, a hereditary form, and had been active in a support group for a while. And so he felt it was very worthwhile to give part of his profits to the Western Neuropathy Association. So that has been just a godsend to us because it is a standard amount every single month. It's something we can count on, and it really helps us to do our budget. So thank you to Thrifty Bargain and all of the people who donate to Thrifty Bargain and shop at Thrifty Bargain. Next slide, please.
Okay, and I will take things back from Pam for a moment to talk a little bit about some of the other stuff that we're doing that hasn't been mentioned quite as much at this point yet. These are all fairly new, except for the PSAs, which I'll talk about. They're fairly new initiatives, and it all is in keeping with the idea that neuropathy is a very common condition, but it's the most common condition that no one has ever heard of, and more people need to hear about it. So in addition to other stuff that is on the YouTube site, you can see some of our public service videos. We have some that are 30 seconds, some that are 60 seconds. They're obviously meant to have provided information and awareness. We try and spread them around to as many parts as we can, whether those are medical offices or whether those are caretakers, caregivers, anyone who probably needs to know a little bit about this seemingly mysterious but quite common condition. We also try and interact with and coordinate activities with other neuropathy organizations out there. You heard me mention a little while ago that there's this letter writing campaign going on with the Department of Defense. That has been spearheaded to a great extent by the Foundation for Peripheral Neuropathy, one of the other organizations out there whose emphasis is primarily research oriented. They don't do much in terms of, say, support groups and the like, except letting people know that we're available, and there are some other ones out there. But we do interact with them. We interact with the Neuropathy Action Foundation, which is an organization that primarily works in Arizona, although it does have some volunteers in other areas. They try and do a lot of lobbying. They specifically like to lobby state legislatures for funding for neuropathy research, in addition, of course, to the fact we try and lobby the federal government whenever we can. We interact with the GBS-CIDP Foundation. For those of you who haven't heard about that, the acronyms are for Guillain-Barré syndrome and chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy. These are both neuropathies that are immune-mediated. CIDP is often considered to be the sort of slower onset, more chronic form of Guillain-Barré syndrome. But they have a foundation as well, because it is an unusual type of neuropathy to have. It's fairly rare, and often physicians don't recognize it. So they have their own webinars, groups, educational seminars as well, and we try and cross-pollinate with them. There's also a fairly new organization that is designed to help support a lot of the support groups out there and run a few of their own, which is the Neuropathy Support Network. They're headquartered in the Washington, D.C. area and have a few groups there. We try and spread information, correct information, you notice it says here, as much as we possibly can through Facebook groups, through Twitter. I think we have a few people that are Instagramming stuff these days. We actually interface, and Catherine can mention this as well, with a site called Stuff That Works, which is not unique, by the way, to neuropathy, but there's a lot of health-related information on that, which is applicable. And in general, this is all about getting things out there. And if you go to the next slide, I think you guys will see a little bit more about what we try and do to get the material out there. Here we have, as you can see, and hopefully you guys can see this, a pamphlet, okay, which describes a lot of what we've been talking about today. What is peripheral neuropathy? You can see on one side of the pamphlet, our mission, information about our support groups, the members. You can see that it has the membership form there. We have a Spanish translation in progress currently, and this is something that the local support groups that meet in person usually have on hand. We can send them out to whoever wants them. We try and get them sometimes into doctors' offices, sometimes more successfully than others. But just so that people can have this sort of thumbnail at a glance material. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see some more stuff about messaging. This is the famous PN button. I'm wondering if, like, do I have one that I can actually show live? Catherine has one that she can show live.
I have one if I'm
one?
showing up now because I'm talking. So it's kind of small, but it's kind of you know, it's not the size of the little buttons.
Yeah, and it's really cute. It is a good conversation starter. It's the type of thing where if people see it, maybe they will ask you about your neuropathy. And of course, obviously, our web address is prominently displayed as well, as is the logo. This was actually helped along by one of our members who is quite a stalwart in our support groups, Elaine Greenberg. She often has very interesting ideas about initiatives we should have, and also has become known in the support groups as the person who will try almost anything once. And so often she will try some new type of intervention or some new type of therapy, and she'll report back to us. So we're very grateful to her. And one more slide to come up. Speaking of things Elaine's been involved with as well, here is a little card that we actually try and send out to everybody who asks and to all the members. Catherine and I did a lot of work on this with input from everybody else, basically just to give people as small a shorthand as possible if they want to hand these out like business cards. Again, we have a Spanish translation in progress. Elaine had input into this as well. You can see that we really telegraphed it here, if you can actually look at it. Causes, symptoms, tests that can be used, but this is also that people primarily can take it with them on doctor's visits, because it helps them to understand maybe some of the things that the health professionals say, and also to remind them, to jog their memories, and to help them to suggest things to the doctors as well. Again, all in the service of getting the knowledge out there and getting more people familiar with this, lay people and health professionals as well. You would be surprised how many health professionals have, I should say, little or practically no knowledge of neuropathy, and we try and help there too. So now, if you go to the next slide, I believe it's time for some questions that if people have. I don't know if there's anything in the Q&A. I'm going to look. I don't see anything in there. What was in there?
There was one question. It's in the answered section. Somebody asked what the dues were. And so I wrote down it's $30 a year, and that hasn't changed for quite a while. And when you do that, then you do get the Neuropathy Hope each month. And know that your money is also going towards supporting research. And I don't think that there were any other questions. Was there anything else that directors you thought that maybe we missed when we were talking about our individual sections?
Well, I will reiterate just a little bit that these dues can stay so low because of the generous donations that we do get. And also because none of the board of directors is paid at all. We are all volunteers, and we appreciate all of our volunteers.
Very much so. So, okay, if nobody else out there has a question, a comment, anything they want to stick in the chat for us, we'll probably wrap up. We wanted to keep you around an hour, and I think we actually got just under that, so that's nice too. Of course, we'll tell you that this particular webinar, if you thought you missed anything or you want to hear anything else about it, it will be up on the website in the near future, and probably right after that up on the YouTube site that we had mentioned before. But do get involved with us if you haven't gotten involved already. Become a member. Please go and join one of the support groups, whether it's virtual or if you're near enough to it, one of the in-person ones. You know, obviously, if you become a member, you'll get the newsletter. Check out the information on the website as well. In other words, don't feel you have to be alone with this. There are many of us who have neuropathy. There are far too many people, unfortunately, who've never heard about this and think they're the only one. It's not true. And hopefully, through the fellowship that comes from being part of the organization, being part of the support groups, it'll make the burden a little bit less difficult to carry.
And I noticed that Lindsay's got her face up there, so we do want to thank Lindsay. We mentioned her a couple of times, and so we do want to thank her for all of her good work in keeping our membership informed of things like the webinar and the support groups and the newsletter. And then she's also the one that has membership, right? So you send it in, it goes to her. She has to do with renewing your membership also.
That's great.
She handles most of the administrative stuff there that basically none of us are really competent to handle. So
No, I appreciate you guys. You guys offer a lot of great support to me too. So I would be flying blind without you guys to guide me through. So I appreciate all of you guys and what you do for the association as well.
And I just wanted to reiterate, if anyone is interested in starting a support group, either online or in person, we have support group handbooks for you. We have information that we can guide you with all the way through. We even have a $50 startup that we can offer for your support group if you need to pay rent someplace. So please reach out to us. One of the benefits of joining the Western Neuropathy Association is that we have insurance. And a lot of times support groups need to prove that they have insurance in order to rent a room. And so we can give that to you. We can make it so that your in-person support group can happen.
okay. Anybody else? Or do we wrap it up?
Wrap it up.
Okay. So anyway, thanks for joining us all today. Join us again. You know, basically, we're going to have a whole batch of things coming up, as we said. And of course, Catherine's got Neuropathy Hope right there. What were you going to say?
Well, only because I've got the webinars on here. So
Okay,
our next
then
webinar,
go ahead.
right, is April 27th. That is when Pam's going to talk about how to spot neuropathy scams. May 25th, Glenn's going to talk about unusual cases of neuropathy. June 22nd is when Linda, the president of the Calgary Neuropathy Association, is going to talk about hereditary neuropathies. And July 27th is when I will talk about neuropathy information for caregivers, families, and friends.
That's a really good lineup. That's a lot of good stuff coming down the way.
We're ready to go.
Yeah.
Take us through summer.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
fantastic.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming. All you people listening to us. I saw there were lots of members there, and I saw there were some new names too. So glad to see all those new names too, and our members support us.
Okay. Enjoy, everyone. And for a lot of you, hopefully we'll see you this Saturday at the 4th Saturday Support Group.
Yes,
Very
exactly.
good.
Okay.
Bye for now.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Enjoy.